Well, good morning. I don't know if anybody can hear me or not because I am having trouble hearing myself. My name is Brian Sexton, and I am hosting this show this morning for my good friend Kevin Ward, and just doing a little check here of our audio. If anybody is on this morning, if you're on with us this morning, if you can tell me whether or not you can hear me, um, that would be a great thing. If you could tell me you could hear me. Again, I am Brian Sexton, your host, and I'm going to make a couple adjustments here so that I think it could be on my end. Give me just a quick second to see if I can hear myself because I cannot hear myself at all. And yes, I will be taking sips of hot beverages at some point throughout the broadcast. But again, it is great to be with you this morning. Kevin is out today, and so uh, good to be with you this morning. For those of you that don't know me, I am the host of the Intentional Encourager podcast, or was the host of the Intentional Encourager podcast. We did that podcast from um, we did that podcast, and forgive me, just making a little couple technical changes here on the fly this morning so that everybody can see me okay and see everything well. So, was the host of the Intentional Encourager podcast for almost 3 years, and so enjoyed that very much. Decided to give that up this year at the start of the new year, and so um, what you're seeing behind my left shoulder is a green screen. So I'm trying to keep that green screen in place. So not the kind of start I wanted to have this morning for the Wisdom Seeker podcast. When Kevin Ward asks you to come in and host the Wisdom Seeker podcast, boy, you try to do the best job that you can for your buddy Kevin Ward. So, but again, a little bit of background about myself. I hosted the Intentional Encourager podcast and did that for a couple of years. And we will put something in the chat this morning. Just checking in with all the Wisdom Seeker folks. All right. All right. If you've got a comment, you know how to get in touch with Kevin this morning. Uh, a lot of you have chatted in with Kevin this morning, and what we'll do is we'll either read those comments or post those comments. Kevin uses a service of which I'm unfamiliar, so we're learning on the fly together this morning, folks. We are learning on the fly together. But the Intentional Encourager podcast was a podcast that we did from um, March of 2020, and we ended that last year. Just felt like it was time. I was a one-man band doing the Intentional Encourager podcast, editing, booking all the guests. And so just having done that um, myself, um, it was time for a change, just time for something different. And so, anyway, this morning I want to talk to you about the wisdom of intentional encouragement. Forgive me, folks. I want to adjust this one more time here so that we don't get all this lovely, lovely burnout behind me. There you go. I think I fixed it. Of course, every time I fix it, and then I move my chair, then it comes back. So, but the impetus, and I kind of want to tell you the story of the intentional encourager, and tell you why I believe intentional encouragement is wise to take on, not for yourself, but those of you that are leading companies, those of you that are leading teams individually, those of you that have your own company. Maybe you're a solopreneur, and you're seeing a lot of that on social media today about socialpreneur. And folks, forgive me, my voice is not 100% this morning. I preached yesterday at my church, and I really kind of strained it a little bit. So, and not to mention, it is a chilly West Virginia morning this morning. So, but let's get into intentional encouragement, shall we? Intentional encouragement. And I'm gonna, let me see if I can pop the comments up here. I'm gonna pop the comments up here. Intentional encouragement. Okay, intentional encouragement. And that's going to be our theme this morning: the wisdom of intentional encouragement. Okay, the wisdom of intentional encouragement. Now, the wisdom of intentional encouragement. Intentional encouragement simply means this. Okay, intentional encouragement simply means to stimulate internal belief on purpose. To stimulate intentional belief on purpose. Okay. Sharon, thank you so much this morning. Good to have you this morning. Very, very good to have you. Thank you. Hope you can hear me okay this morning. So, anyway, intentional encouragement means to stimulate internal belief on purpose. To stimulate internal belief on purpose. Okay. Now, to do that, what does that mean? What does that mean to stimulate internal belief on purpose? Well, it means a couple of things. Okay. It means having the intestinal fortitude to understand what encourages me, to recognize and understand this encourages me, this helps me, this keeps me stimulated. Okay. And when I say stimulated, I don't mean like a cup of coffee. All right. Now, I have my hot tea here this morning. My hot tea. See, the West Virginia on my cup is green. That's why it shows up like a brick. So if I would turn it around, you'd see the Marshall logo, the school I went to, Go Herd. You'll see that. So this is my hot beverage this morning. Now, you could also use the word promotion. So we could use stimulate, we could use promote. Okay. Anything inside of you, anything inside of you that helps you get that internal belief turned on in the mornings. And I say in the mornings, here's why. Everything you do that starts your day, in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, will determine how the rest of your day goes. It's a fact. It really is a fact. I think I may have found the problem, folks, with the headphones. Give me just a quick second here. I'm going to have to apologize to my dear brother Kevin for making these technical changes. on the fly on his live on his live stream. But we've got technology going here. Forgive me just a second. I'll keep talking while I adjust my headphones here. But everything you do starts the day in the right direction. And so if you start your day, let's say you're a Christian, and you start your day with prayer, and that would be a good idea to do as a Christian. We found the problem. Yes, 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 we found the problem. So now I can hear myself. When you start your day with prayer, and as a Christian, I highly recommend that. Now, a lot of mornings, what I'll do is I'll wake up and I will be thankful in the mornings. Okay. I might get up and I might be thankful that morning for waking up. And if you know anything about me and you know anything about my story, waking up in the waking up is crucially important. Okay. Here's why. When I lost my dad back in December of 2012. I'm going to adjust this camera super quick here. When I lost my dad in December of 2012, my dad passed away in his sleep. And for me, waking up in the mornings is really a thank God for another day. My dad had every intention of getting up, going to work, teaching a Bible study that night. My dad was a pastor. And my dad had full intention of waking up, starting the day, going at it. Good morning, Eunice, and everybody else here. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. My dad had every intention of getting up and going to work and doing what he had to do and seeing me the next day and at our company. But my dad didn't get a chance to do that. My dad woke up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, as a lot of men close to 60 do, and just didn't wake up. And so when I wake up in the mornings, folks, that's the first thing that's really on my mind is, God, thank you for another day. And listen, as a Christian, I don't want to get on here and preach or anything like that. That's not what Kevin asked me to do. Folks, you'll forgive me. I'm going to do something real quick here because this is kind of driving me crazy here. I'm going to just play with the video just a second. Now, what you're going to see behind me is going to be a green screen here, okay? And if you'll just give me a quick second to adjust the video here, maybe I can't. Let's see if it'll do that. But anyway, what I was going to say is, there we go. We're just going to go all natural here. So I have a green screen in my studio, and normally I'll put a virtual background on it, but I think we're going to solve these color issues, if we will. So you're going to see a little bit of a shadowy here, but yeah. And Sharon, thank you for that. I appreciate that so much. Yes. So the reason that I say what I'm going to say, what I'm saying is for me, the encouragement of the day starts with me by just waking up, right? It's just waking up in the mornings and understanding that, boy, I've got another day. And so whether you start your day in prayer, whether you start your day in meditation, whether you start your day with daily motivation, whether you start your day with affirmations, those are great pieces of intentional encouragement because we have to stimulate the mind, body, soul, and spirit. Okay. We are more than just cells and fibers and tissues. We are mind, body, soul, and spirit. Now I'm going to put that up in the comments so that you guys can see that this morning. We are made up of mind, body, soul, and spirit. Mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so when you understand that mind, body, soul, and spirit make up who you are, you've got to stimulate mind, body, soul, spirit. Because when you wake up in the morning, and sometimes my hands will go to sleep. And anybody's hands ever go to sleep at night? And they wake up and they're kind of tingly and stuff like that. Well, when you move them, you start to stimulate that normal response. It's not normal for your hands to wake up tingly. Okay, your hand falls asleep or your leg falls asleep. So you have to stimulate that, right? And so then in the mornings when you roll out of bed, you got to, you put your feet on the floor and you got to stimulate that to move and get you up and going where you need to go. Your spirit gets stimulated, especially if you're a spiritual person, if you're a Christian. Your spirit gets stimulated by your relationship with the Lord. The soul is your personality. It's who you are. It makes you up. I don't mean to talk about death this morning, but when you see somebody laying there, lifeless, you see the body that they have. Then you say, well, that's Brian or that's Kevin or that's whoever. But what makes them who they are is gone. That's their soul, their personality. Okay. So your personality needs to be stimulated. By nature, I am an optimistic person. By nature, I am a person that wakes up and I try to be in a good mood a lot of the times because that's by nature who I am. My mom always told me, she said, son, the world is full of buttholes. Don't be one. I don't mean to, but my West Virginia is coming out this morning. By the way, it's the reason I'm a little layered up this morning. It is a crisp fall day in West Virginia this morning. So I think the temperature right now is a robust 48 degrees right now. So that's why I'm layered up a little bit. It's cool here. So, but then we have to stimulate our minds because the first thing that happens to our minds, folks, is we start to think about all the things we've got to do. Well, I've got to take a shower. I've got to get dressed for work. I've got to make my breakfast. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And so our minds are just, we're just pinging at about 1,000 miles an hour. And so we've got to stimulate mind, soul, body, and spirit. Mind, soul, body, and spirit, and do it on purpose. Okay. That is the wisdom of intentional encouragement is how do I do this intentionally and correctly? Okay. Because there are some wrong ways to encourage yourself. Well, some people will use negative reinforcement to get a positive result. No. How in the world can you take a negative reinforcement and get a positive result? The only one that can give you a positive result from a negative situation is the Lord. That's just my opinion. And again, folks, I'm not ashamed that I'm a Christian. I look at things from a Christian perspective. And so in my 51 years of life, from my experience, the only one that can take a negative and make it a positive is the Lord. And so typically life does not do that for us. Now, do we have lessons that we learn from negative experiences? Of course. Of course we do. But we have to get that lesson to turn it into a positive for us. But it doesn't start out being positive. And so if you're not encouraged intentionally, negative situations will snowball. Okay, negative situations will just compound on top of each other. I've shared this with so many people, I don't want to share it with this audience this morning. Encouragement is like a window for the mind. Encouragement really is the window for the mind. And let me share something with you this morning. Let's say, for instance, that you're in the midst of a negative situation. You're in the midst of a negative situation, and I come to you and I say, I've got exactly what you need. I've got it right here. This will help you. Unless you encourage yourself to open the window of the mind, you will not receive the help that you need. Encouragement opens the mind. Open minds can receive the necessary things that they need. That's why a lot of times you see people in grief situations act a certain way. The worst thing that could possibly have happened has happened, and the emotions of the situation do not allow them to open their minds. And so what happens is, because the mind is closed, because encouragement cannot open the window of the mind, now that person is walking around and the solution is in front of them, but they can't receive it and they can't see it because the mind is closed. Encouragement always opens the mind. It always opens the mind. Because what happens is the mind opens the soul opens the spirit, and the spirit transmits it to the body. Okay? Everything you go to do today starts here. Okay? Everything in life that we do starts here. Think about those of you that are married. I've been married. Next Wednesday will be my 27th wedding anniversary to my wife, Tanya. The first thing I had to do was when my best friend Chris said, "Hey, do you want to go out with Tanya?" Sure. My mind first had to process, okay, do I want to go out with this girl? Do I want to go on a blind date? Then my mind had to say, okay, do I want to go again? It was when my soul and spirit got encouraged too. Everything worked in a cycle. And then in October, we were married. So we met in late December, and by the next October, we were married. But I had to encourage myself here first, right here between my ears. That is the wisdom of intentional encouragement. Start with the mind. I'm going to put that in the comments here. The first place to start with intentional encouragement is start with the mind. Stephen Covey says this, begin with the end in mind. But I'm going to say this, start with the mind. Start with the mind. The Apostle Paul in the scriptures tells us this. Let me get this for you real quick because this is really good. If you're a Christian, which I am, and again, I'm an unashamed Christian, this is a great thing to start with. And so we'll look at it from the New International Version. And I want to put this up for you real quick. Forgive me, folks. This is a new platform for me, and I'm kind of learning on the fly here. But this is what the scriptures tell us. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true. Okay? Think about something for a minute here. Never encourage yourself with false words. It's like eating empty calories. You're still going to be hungry. Never encourage yourself with false words. Always be truthful with yourself. See, what happens to a lot of folks today is this. We have a lot of people in our society that lie to themselves because it's okay to lie to yourself. Well, I can lie to myself because it's okay. I'm only hurting me. No. Don't lie to yourself, because if you lie to yourself, then you'll say it's okay to lie to other people. It's never okay to lie to other people. So just take that out of your vocabulary. My recommendation would be this: just don't do it at all. Just don't lie to yourself or anybody else, and you'll be okay. But start with the mind. Whatever is true, whatever is noble. You ever see somebody that you know for a fact does the right things right? And that's the second part of the verse. But nobility, we've lost nobility in our society today. We've lost it in business. We've lost it. Why do you think contracts exist? Why do contracts exist? Because many years ago, folks started not being noble in business. You couldn't count on their word. My dad told me something one time. He said, if you say it, own it. If you say it, own it. But we've lost nobility in business. We've lost nobility in life. We've lost nobility in politics. We've lost nobility in a lot of things. Whatever is right. We know the difference between right and wrong. We know the difference between right and wrong. But so many people choose to do wrong because it's easier to do wrong than it is to do right. My friend Tom Roten says this all the time. He said, it's never wrong to do right. It's never right to do wrong. And I love that. Whatever is pure. We've gotten away from the wisdom of purity, and that could be its own podcast just by itself. The wisdom of purity, because we do not understand that purity is a wonderful thing. Why do we value children so much? Because children, for the first few years of their life, are pure. Sure, they get into things. They'll sass you and things like that. They're learning. That's where correction has to come in. But children are pure. There's something spiritually, adjust the camera there for a second, folks. Thank you. There's something spiritually called the age of accountability, where children start to know the difference between right and wrong. And so when you think about that, knowing the difference between right and wrong is purity. And so in business, let's think about it from the wisdom of business for a second. We should have pure intentions when we deal with folks in the workplace. Those of you that lead people, have pure intentions. Think to yourself, if I were on the receiving end of this, how would I want to be treated? Whatever is lovely, You know something? We don't value lovely like we've always done before. We don't value lovely. We have gotten to the point in our society and in business where we'll just accept whatever. We don't think about things in love. We don't think about things in the sense of doing it with a spirit of love behind it. And here's what I'm saying. You don't have to love every customer you do business with. A lot of times what people love is the profitability of business. But you don't have to love everybody you do business with. Here's what you need to do. You need to love the experience that you can provide them. And be spot on point by saying, here's what we do, here's what we don't do, and here's what you can expect. And love that process in there so to where they love it too. You know, people will talk about the way that they're treated a lot longer than the product they bought. You realize that, right? If people go to a restaurant and their experience is so off the charts, they couldn't tell you what they ordered. They forgot what they ordered. But the experience is so on the money that they'll just keep talking about it, talking about it, talking about it. Whatever is admirable. Are we intentionally thinking about admirability in people, in products, in things, in the way we do business? I want to be admirable in the way that I do business. I want people to say, listen, I don't agree with you, but you're admirable. Nobility and admirable. Why do you think they're in the same verse here? Because nobility and admirability go hand in hand. They absolutely go hand in hand. And it's wise in business to be noble and to be admirable. It's so wise. And here's the thing. You can use those two traits to intentionally encourage yourself. I will, in every situation, be noble and admirable. And then when I encourage myself that way, I begin to think more nobly and admirably. I will set myself apart. You can encourage yourself by saying, I will set myself apart. I will set myself apart intentionally towards admirability and nobility. I will do that intentionally. That's the problem, folks, is we don't try to be noble and admirable about things. Our world is not geared to be that way. It's all about what can I get for myself. Encourage yourself differently in those things. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, you know something? When I know that I've done a good job, when I know that I've done something well, I don't need any more for people to pat me on the back. And what happens, folks, is too many times we're trying to pat ourselves on the back. An old saying comes to mind: a pat on the back is merely 18 inches from the kick in the butt. We've got to stop worrying about patting ourselves on the back. But we can say to ourselves and encourage ourselves this way: I've done this with excellence. And encourage yourself that every time that you do that, you'll strive to do that with excellence. And so again, it stimulates the mind and it encourages the mind to think, when I do something, I do it with excellence. This verse says, think on these things. And I'm going to post the reference down here for you. Think on these things. This is just good, practical wisdom. This is good, practical wisdom. And it's a blueprint for encouragement. It is a blueprint for encouragement. Thinking on things that help you. Thinking on things that stimulate you. Thinking on things that give you what you need to function throughout the day. Let me share this with you. When you do something, is it for you or is it for somebody else? Is it for you or is it for somebody else? If it's for you, then what happens is, and again, I'm going to go back to the scriptures, you've received your reward already. But the wisdom of intentional encouragement is passing it along, paying it forward, if you will. I see so many companies talk about culture. They say, well, we're changing culture. We are changing the culture here. Well, that's great. Golf clap for you. But have you encouraged your people to do more in that culture? Is your culture a culture of encouragement? You see, I see a lot of leadership gurus out there. A lot of them have best-selling books. Good for them. They miss the one key thing about culture change and culture transformation. And we're working on that book right now. Working on a book called The Power of Intentional Encouragement. Because so many leadership gurus miss it, is they don't focus enough on encouragement. Mainly because they don't know what encouragement is. And I'm going to put that definition back up for you guys this morning. I'm going to put that definition back up for you this morning. The definition of intentional encouragement. And the reason that so many people want to change culture rather than focus on encouragement is we have a set it and forget it mentality. We have a set it and forget it mentality. So here's the definition for everybody of intentional encouragement. To stimulate internal and external belief on purpose. The reason that we have such a culture of, well, we're just going to set the culture here, okay? The reason that more people do that instead of focus on intentional encouragement is very simple. To be an intentional encourager, to foster a culture of intentional encouragement, it requires you to give more than you take in. And that is counterintuitive to where our society is today. Our society today believes this: take more than you give. Look at me rather than looking at someone else. Social media, with all the wonderful things it has done, it has created a me first culture. And encouragement, to create a culture of intentional encouragement, is not a me first strategy. Because to become an intentional encourager, you will give much more than you take in. That's why it's so important to encourage yourself first. You cannot pour into someone else from an empty bucket. Love to know what you think about intentional encouragement. Give me some ways you encourage yourself. I've shared some ways this morning, but I want to hear from you. How do you encourage yourself? And so when I see leaders that talk about creating these cultures, the one thing they never address is the culture of encouragement. I will share with you a secret of encouragement. I want to share this with Kevin's audience. Love this. Here's a byproduct of building a culture of encouragement first. Here's what happens. When you get people that come to work every day encouraged, they are going to transmit that to other people, meaning your external customers and vendors, meaning everyone you do business with externally, your customers, and the folks that call on you. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a company, and let's say you're running a company of 200 people, by getting your people encouraged and setting a culture of encouragement, what's going to happen is your customer experience is going to start to go up. Why? Because you've set yourself apart as a different company, because not everybody is creating a culture of encouragement. Their people aren't waking up in the morning. Here's what happens. A customer calls in, and I used to be in the food service distribution industry. Customer calls, my truck didn't come today. My truck's late. Okay. When you're encouraged, you can say, you know what? Listen, we pride ourselves on being on time. And I know that doesn't mean anything to you right now because your truck's late. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get on the phone right now and start making some phone calls. Can I give you a call back in, let's say, 10, 15 minutes? If you give me a little bit of time to fix this, I'm confident we'll get it worked out. Encouraged people diffuse situations. Discouraged people go, stupid company. We can't get it right now, can we? Good grief. Being run by idiots is what we're being run by. See the difference? An encouraged person knows how to be the thermostat. Let me lower the temperature. And you know what? You know why that is? Because they're encouraged. Their thermostat is already set to the right temperature. A thermometer. You got a hot customer on the other end of the phone. And they're matching the temperature of that customer. And so then they're calling in, they're going, man, somebody messed up my customer. Blah, 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 blah. Encouraged people know how to set the thermostat. I love being around encouraged people. I am an encourager. When you see me, I want you to feel encouraged. And when folks see you, that's the wisdom of intentional encouragement. That's the true wisdom of intentional encouragement. When you see me, you should leave stimulated internally. Man, boy, Brian's helped me today. Boy, oh boy. Brian's helped me in a big way today. Man, I'm grateful for that. See, every one of us, I love this comment. Sharon, thank you. I worked for AT&T a long time ago. They taught us to take a negative and turn it into a positive. It really did work well and still does. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Sharon. You know why that is because you came to work encouraged. You were told, listen, when a customer brings you this, you have the ability. That's empowerment. Intentional encouragement is very powerful. When I know not only how to fix the situation, but I'm empowered to fix the situation, then guess what? I can take that situation. I don't have to be bothered by it. Somebody can be jumping sideways, cussing up and down. One, you don't need to act like that. People do not need that. That's one thing social media has done. Let me jump off here for just a second. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We've got people a lot of times that don't filter themselves on social media. I used to be in college admissions. Years ago, I recruited for a school in Kentucky. That was the beginnings of actually looking at students' social media and seeing whether or not they were a good fit for your school. A lot of schools started, especially in a competitive in a competitive enrollment situation, they would look at a kid and say, well, they've got a 31 ACT, they've got a 4.0 GPA, everything checks the boxes, but they're a wild card on social media. If they get here, are they going to do the same things? If something doesn't go their way, are they going to blast us out on social media? I'm going to take the kid that doesn't really post a lot. It's not going to cause me as many problems. Employers look at social media. And so, like I said before, encourage yourself not to post everything. You don't have to post everything. Here's my rule for LinkedIn posting. Does it help someone? Does it help someone? With what I'm posting, will it help someone? If the answer is yes, I post it. If it's a look at me and look how great I am, and look at my company and look how great it is, I won't post it. It's not about me. I don't have to get likes and shares and, I'm going to build this platform. The problem we've gotten, folks, is we're too busy building platforms and we're not busy enough building legacies. And that's what we're going to talk about next week when I'm in for Kevin. Thank you, Sharon. I am very fortunate to be married to the woman I'm married to. She is an amazing woman. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're so busy building platforms and not busy enough building legacies. And building legacy is encouraging. I have a 23-year-old son. The greatest thing that I can do for him is teach him to encourage himself. The greatest thing overall that I can do for him is teach him how to love God, love his wife. He's not married yet, but teach him and show him what loving the Lord looks like, serving and living for the Lord looks like, loving and living with his mom peacefully, loving his mom, and being the best husband that I can be to his mom. That's that's the encouragement that I have is when I do these things right, if I should take my last breath today, my son's going to be okay because I've done the things that I've needed to do to help him understand how to do those things correctly in his own life. But we're so worried about, well, let me try to build this platform. Let me try to build this business. Let me try to build this thing like that. Nah, 1,000 times no. The greatest thing that we can do to encourage ourselves is understand what we're leaving behind. If I take my last breath today, guess what? My wife knows that I loved her with all my heart. Because I looked her in the eye, told her, said, I love you before I came out here to do this. Looked at my son, said the same thing. People that I love know that I love them. That's encouraging to them. Because if I leave today, then they're going to know how I feel about them. Because I have intentionally done that. I've intentionally told them, I love you. And meant it from my heart. And that encourages me when my wife looks at me and says, I love you, Brian. My son looks at me, I love you. That encourages me. But we're more worried about posting things on social media and doing all this other stuff that doesn't mean anything. Do you realize some of the greatest influencers on LinkedIn are probably miserable in real life? They're probably pretty miserable because they've not learned how to encourage themselves. They've invested all this time in building platforms and building these things that are temporal, and not enough time encouraging themselves, learning how to encourage themselves, and building something within themselves that's eternal. So here's the wisdom, here's the real wisdom of intentional encouragement. You ready? When you can encourage yourself and keep yourself encouraged and keep that bucket full, then you have enough for everybody. And it won't be a beating your chest and look at me, look how great I am. It will flow out of you. Here's the thing. Water doesn't have to be visible to show you how powerful it is. You turn on the spigot and it flows out. Except when the pipes are clogged. And there are times that we've got to get those internal pipes unclogged and get the right encouragement so that it flows through us. The pressure's got to be right. The temperature's got to be right. You don't want to get into a shower in the morning. Now, some people take cold showers and there's a health benefit to it. But I like a good hot shower, especially on a cold West Virginia morning. I like a good hot shower. That wakes me up physically. That stimulates me physically. But if the temperature's too hot or too cold, I feel it. And if the pressure's not there, I feel it. And so internally, the wisdom of intentional encouragement is keeping that encouragement flowing. Mind, body, soul, and spirit. Keeping that encouragement flowing. Letting it flow through us. And as it flows through us internally, it flows out of us externally. That's the power, the wisdom of intentional encouragement, is to let it flow so that other people get it. If I have an empty bucket, I can't pour into somebody else, especially when they need water themselves, or they need that water of encouragement themselves. And so, if you want the wisdom of intentional encouragement, understand it's about encouraging yourself first. And I'm going to put that up there again. I'm going to put that definition up there one more time as we get ready to close the show this morning. Intentional encouragement to stimulate internal and external belief on purpose. And how we do it: mind, body, soul, and spirit. mind, body, soul, and spirit. I'm gonna throw a couple things up here. So if you got some value this morning from this podcast, this episode, love to hear from you this morning. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me there, linkedin.com/Brian Sexton MBA. And again, would love to hear from you if you got some value from this morning. By the way, and give me just a quick second here. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you folks about my book, People Buy From People. This was a book that I wrote a few years ago in honor of my late father. My dad was the ultimate intentional encourager. My dad was the ultimate intentional encourager. And people go, well, you know, boy, oh boy, you're an intentional. It's because my dad was the ultimate intentional encourager. And so it was a book that I wanted to write in honor of my dad. And so you can find it online here. You can find it. My good friend Dale Dupree, joined me in writing the foreword for this book. Some great things in there that will really help you. So, if you want to get a copy of the book, I'd be honored. Even reach out to me. I've got some copies here that I'll sell you and send to you. People Buy From People. That's the Amazon link as well too. But boy, I have enjoyed myself this morning. You know, I was a little nervous that Kevin would turn the Wisdom Seeker podcast over to me. I mean, that's almost that's almost not a good idea to turn this thing over to me. But I have enjoyed myself very, very much. I thank you for those of you that have joined this morning. Come back next week. I'm in for Kevin again next week, and then maybe Kevin will have me on the week following. So, but definitely want to thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in this morning. I am grateful that you tuned in. Thankful that you tuned in this morning. And so, again, next week, the Wisdom Seeker podcast. The Wisdom Seeker podcast will be on. And again, support Kevin. Support what he's doing. Kevin is one of my dearest friends. And this guy is full of wisdom. I'm telling you, you want a man that will teach you how to think more wisdom-minded, Kevin Ward is your guy. And what a dear friend Kevin Ward is. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. It is 8:59 Eastern time, and show goes to 9 o'clock here. I'm going to get ready to sign off. But again, encourage yourself today. Take a few minutes and just encourage yourself. And just keep yourself encouraged. I always say this as my tagline: get encouraged and stay encouraged. I'm Brian Sexton here on the Wisdom Seeker podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you next week on the Wisdom Seeker podcast. God bless everybody. Have a great week.